Raise your hands if you're a dentist. Raise your hands again if your patients don't always say yes to the treatment you suggest. And raise your hands again if you'd like to make that happen using a multi-sensory patient journey. Perfect. Okay, so let me introduce you to myself. All right, so I'm Jag, and I was born and grew up in Lincoln. And I remember at university, nobody really knew where Lincoln was. And I remember having to draw a map on people's freshers t-shirts, on my friends' shirts, to show them where it was. So I'd draw the UK, then I'd draw Lincoln and Liverpool and London to give my idea of where I grew up. But I had an amazing childhood and things came relatively easy to me. Apart from my kind of first taste of failure, which was during my A-levels, and I didn't really quite get the results that I wanted during my first year. And so my parents took it upon them to call some relatives over to give me a bollocking. And my aunt is a deputy head teacher at a school. She's a deputy head teacher and she speaks to everyone like this 6 years old. So I remember sitting there in that living room and it was a really, really hot day and I was sat in this brown leather chair and I was just sticking to it because I was so nervous. And they walked in and no hello, nothing, it just started. And it was like, Jack, what the hell are you doing? Do you even want to be a dentist anymore? Go and do something else, blah, 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 blah. And I just started to zone out. And as I zoned out, I just wanted the ground to open up and just take me straight to hell because I'd be far more comfortable there. But then all of a sudden my uncle said something. He broke my attention. He goes, Jack, and he looked into my soul like this, straight into my soul. And he goes, do you know something? And I went, no. And he goes, you are not lacking anything. And as that sunk in, it was like a tube light moment. You turn the switch on and it slowly makes sense, like a slow motion punch to the face, right? And as it sank in, it made complete sense to me. He was completely right. I had no argument. I had nothing, no excuses at all. I could achieve anything I wanted. And that changed the trajectory of my thinking forever. So I went back to school and I worked harder than I ever worked before. And I pushed and pushed and pushed and I barely got into dentistry and I barely got out the other end. I then pushed even harder because I really wanted a private job and I knew that's where the fun stuff happened. So as I pushed harder, I finally had made it. I finally achieved that goal and I felt so good once it was done. And so I did what any 26-year-old dentist would do at that point, right? I bought myself a car. So I bought myself this black Jaguar F-Type and it was amazing. I had black bits everywhere, carbon fiber parts, red bits, 4 exhausts. And when I sat in that thing and I drove it and I listened to it, it represented all of my success and I felt on top of the world. Then things changed as they do. 2 years later, the practice manager was fired. And when she was fired, the team were completely destabilized, right? The nurses were leaving. I didn't know who I was working with. Stuff would go missing. And it became a really, really stressful, uncertain time. And I really wanted to find a way out, but I didn't know how. There's a saying that says you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I didn't want to be an average of any of these people if I could help it. So it was a very, very difficult time. Around the same time, however, my wife decided to start my business. And my wife by background is a sensory scientist. And so what she does is any kind of businesses that want to send stuff to the market will come to her and she'll test it. So Cadbury's might send chocolates, might get pot noodles, anything. She'll check the taste, the flavor, the marketing of it, the packaging, whatever it might be. Make suggestions, switch it up and send it back. And so we thought, well, what if we could implement some of this stuff for people? So we tried. We got hold of this space. And within that space, it wasn't very big, but we could change anything. So the lighting, the smell, the textures, the flavors, all of that. And so we started doing cool stuff, like we would serve white wine under red light and describe red wine. They would think it was red. We would change the sweetness of the food based on the color of the plate, or how salty it was based on the sound. And all these really, really interesting things and really messing with people's heads. What we found was that it gained so much traction. It was so different that people were loving it. And it was such a great experience to actually deliver. For me, it was a complete contrast to working where I was to doing something that I actually really enjoyed. And this was a hell of a lot of fun. Then I had a light bulb moment, actual light bulb moment this time, not tube light. So light bulb moment where I thought, well, what if I could implement some of this stuff at work? What would happen? So I sat down with Xenia and we tried. We thought, okay, let's do it. So I started changing some of the lighting. I started reading around psychology and communication skills as well at that point. And so the lighting would change. I'd change the way things were sounding depending on what I was doing and who I was speaking to. The aroma would change, what I was wearing, all that sort of stuff. And I was messing around quite a bit. And something really funny happened. Patients started to listen to me more. They would trust me more. They would take me up on treatment. My income would increase. And also the people who are working with that day really were fine. And this was a big contrast to the practice because that was falling apart around me. But this was actually really interesting and is a positive thing for the time. This was January 2020. March 2020, we know what happened, right? So 4 or 5 days, got back from Kenya, bang, COVID. Everything stopped. Income stopped, the studio stopped. We were expecting our baby in June and everybody had COVID. And it was a really, really difficult time. I remember looking at my statements the following month and thinking, oh, the rent's going out for that space. Don't know if we can afford to keep it going. So I called Xenia downstairs and I said, look, we're really struggling here. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think we can carry this on. And she's like, what do you mean? You have to find a way. I love this thing. I have to find a way of making this work. And she said, I was like, I can't do it. I'm really sorry. We're going to have to shut it down. And so we had to let it go. And that was devastating for both of us. It was really, really difficult. And so we carried on, and then June 2020, our firstborn was around, and literally I didn't know what the hell to do financially. I was in such a bad place. And then you just have to keep carrying on. You have to just trust things are going to get better, but how do you do that? And in July, the practice doors opened up again, and things were worse than ever. They were horrible, as you will all know. We were wearing masks, everything I'd done and implemented had been undone, and I was aching to get the hell out of there. Aching, needed a way out. Hands up raise your hands if you've ever been pushed and pushed and pushed to the point of destruction, and then the universe has sent something your way to help you out. Okay, so for me it was a Thursday afternoon in September, and my phone started ringing, and I got a bit nervous because the guy that was calling me never calls. He always texts, and particularly on that day because he always plays golf on Thursdays. And it was my implantologist, and I thought, what the hell's going on? Has someone complained? Has something gone wrong? Has he ever done something incorrectly? But I picked up the phone and I could tell by the tone of his voice it was something else completely. And he goes, Jag, let's go for a drink. So I thought, okay, fine. So I joined him. I sat down with him and I said, what's going on? And he goes, what I want you to do is take over the practice. I want to step back in 2 years' time. I want to be your associate. And I thought, oh my God, what the hell? Like, how can I even do this? Like, your practice is going to be worth so much. How can I even afford that? I've hardly got an income now. But I said, how about we try this? Why don't I come and work with you? You teach me a couple of things, and in 2 or 3 years' time, we'll work it out. Let's see what happens. And he was, good idea. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I've done this, right? So I've gone from having nothing to a way out. I was so excited. So I got home that day really excited. And I spent all evening writing my letter of resignation. I wrote it like a novel. Literally, I used all the English I could. And I drove to work that day super happy. In fact, I saved the whole feeling of handing that notice in till the end of the day. I went upstairs, opened the door, and I put it really neatly in the middle of the desk, and I skipped out of work that day. And I got back and I found a way out. And I was so excited. This next 6 months flew by for me, and I completely indulged myself in the new job. I went all in, and I changed everything. I changed the communication of the team. I changed the TCO stuff. I changed the patient journey. I changed all the lighting in the room, my aftershave, what I was wearing, the way things were smelling, everything. And within 4 months implementing this stuff, I had tripled my income. Not only that, but 3 other friends who are really struggling in NHS practice at the same time, I'd coached them for about 3 or 4 months, and 4 months later, all 3 of them had left their jobs and they were now working in private practices, and they were far, far happier. The most satisfying thing for me was when my friend called me and he goes, look, Jag, I was really struggling to pay my nursery fees, but now I don't mind. It's absolutely fine. I can do it. And thank you. And that was such an amazing feeling for me. And it's crazy how somebody who barely got into dentistry, let alone out, was now teaching people how to do this sort of stuff. There's a great saying, and it goes along the lines of our experiences. Our senses are not just for receiving information, but also they help us perceive the world, right? They form our experiences. And I'd love to teach you guys how to do the same stuff. My promise to you is, if you come on board, your income will increase by a minimum of 20%. There are 3 ways you can come on the journey with me. There's a level 1 program where it's complete one-on-one hands-on coaching, right? So we'll take you through the whole journey. We'll break down what you're doing right now and redesign your patient journey, teach your team communication skills, and we'll design a completely unique multi-sensory experience. Raise your hands if you've ever walked into a hotel or a restaurant or anywhere and the first thing that's hit you is the fragrance. Okay, so W Hotel do this, and so do Hollister, right? So you walk in and you smell it. So within this package, we can even deliver a private label fragrance for your practice. So it's completely bespokely made for you, and it gives you a totally unique brand identity. This takes everything to the next level. Investment for level 1 is just £35,000. Level 2 is group coaching for 6 months, right? So there's a group coaching for 6 months, and we take practices who really want to have their own take with things, but just implement everything that we know. So we'll again help you with your patient journey, help you with your communication skills, and design a personalized multi-sensory experience for you. And we can do that in groups. And there's a lot of online content to go through as well over 6 months. At the end of that, there's a 1-day live event where we'll really push your sensory experiences to the next level and completely blow your mind. And this will be stuff that you can not only apply in your practice, but also in your personal lives as well. Investment for level 2 is just £20,000. Level 3 is 4 months of online coaching, so online content, right? So it's designed for practices who've already got their patient journey in place and their communication skills pretty good. It's just about delivering that multi-sensory experience and taking things to the absolute next level. So all of that content is available for 4 months, and you'll have some bit of one-on-one coaching as well. And that will really, really push things to the next level and make you totally unique to any of the people around you. Investment for level 3 is just £10,000. I truly believe that whichever level you come on with me, your practice will thrive, your patients will be happier, your staff will be happier, you will be happier, and not only that, but your lives, most importantly, will become more enriched. Thank you.